mansion down the street. I have been living on this street, Holden Street, for as long as I can remember, and for as long as I can remember there has been the old mansion at the end of the street sitting at the end of an old, winding, dead-end dirt road. We must pass by the old mansion whenever we want to use the main road. Whenever we passed, it had always had me wondering, it is as if it's old wood, or perhaps it was the roughly painted half-falling-off shutters, something, always got me thinking when we drove by that old mansion, thoughts that would say, I must have that house. As we pass by the old mansion, I hear my mom and dad worriedly talk about the future. My dad works as a banker, my mom is a daycare provider. They began to ask one another what they were going to do with me. I recently stopped schooling, because a virus moved into town, and my parents do not want me getting sick. I am not the only one in my family that cannot go to school. I have a 10-year-old brother and an 8-year-old sister, plus, I have a regular friend that visits several times a week, along with mine and her friend Tom. We all do not go to school anymore. Steph and Tom are over almost every day, except when their parents think they are up to no good. Lately Tom, Steph, and I are close. We are always hanging around one another. As far as we were concerned, we were family. Once in a while, my 10-year-old brother would hang out with us. His name was Frog. He usually brought along our sister Sally. Frog has brown hair and brown eyes and appears to be as old as me. I think I accidentally made myself look better than him and now, he sorts of fakes it, or is older somehow. Sally has brown hair as well. Frog and Sally could be taken as twins, but Sally looks much younger. They do not go to public school now, so they are always around my friends and I to pretend that they are doing what they see the other children doing on television. Steph adores Frog and Sally. She pretends to be their mother. It gives her a job. Once in a while, I can get jealous of my sibling. Their mother, it gives her a job. Once in a while, I can get jealous of my siblings. I hope they are not stealing my friends, I say to myself. Most of the time it is my problem, not theirs. Steph has beautiful purple hair. Miss Purple, I call her from time to time in moments of play. Her blue eyes make her an incredibly attractive young lady. She is 14 years old and regularly spends time outside of her house. Tom on the other hand rarely goes out, that is until he is with Steph. Tom wears circle eyeglasses. I rarely get a chance to see what color his eyes are. Big, thick, black circle glasses he wears. That is how I think of him, big circle glasses. If he were to take off his glasses, I for sure would not recognize him. He met Steph a little under a year ago and spends a lot of time out with her. Beforehand most of the time he was in his room working on his toy airplanes or trains. Model trains and airplanes is how Tom met Steph. Steph's father owns a hobby shop, and Tom would go in there from time to time to buy paint for his toys. He never noticed Steph in there before, but one day Tom needed help finding paint. Steph was the person who helped him find the paint he was looking for. He was drawn to Steph's purple hair. No one in the small town, or rather the outskirts of a small city, had purple hair. Tom was an average boy, brown hair, and circle eyeglasses. He did not know how to treat someone with purple hair. She told him her hair was naturally purple. For not 1 second did Tom believe that. He was so scared about something, he never checked to see if it were true. When she told me her hair was naturally purple, I figured it was a cover for being plainly dull, that she invented the idea to add some excitement into her life. To fit in with her, I asked my parents to buy me some purple hairspray. They did, and so most of the time my hair is purple as well. I have only known Steph for a few months, and ever since I met her, I have been drawn to copy her every move. I try to keep her around me as much as possible. If she were wearing black, I would change into something black, just so we would have a thing together. Tom took notice of my attraction towards Steph and decided to help me. Tom and I met a long time ago. We met in first grade. He told Steph for me that I was a friendly person, popular, and whosoever I liked was sort of special, and not to be taken lightly, so as soon as I started copying Steph, she thought that she was special and popular, and felt free to do as she pleased, whether at school or at home. As soon as she found out my father was wealthy, she filled what she thought was the shoes of a rich child. She was not wealthy, her family was rather poor, living on a few dollars a day. It was possible to live that way, I slowly figured out by being around Steph and her family. While growing up, I thought everyone would shop at a grocery store, but they do not, and as far as buying a soda at a gas station or corner store, that was rather impossible for Steph. Her family would buy beans, 20-pound bags of beans at one time, sort of like one would buy grain or pet food. After spending some time with her mother, I concluded shopping was easy. All one would need to do to feed a family of 4 for a month was buy a 25-pound bag of rice and 20 pounds of beans. That is basically what they ate for the entire month. They appeared to be healthier than my family. I could almost feel like a bad person when I invite Steph to get a soda or a candy bar. I could almost say to her, "Do not tell your parents," but that could be even worse. I figure if she likes it, the candy or soda, she will not put herself in a situation that can cause her to lose it. Tom said she takes the stuff, candy and soda, just to fit in and pretend she is rich too. I did not want to think about it, such could hurt my acceptance of life as it is. Tom does not say much about this, but I think his parents are wealthier than mine. He seems to like casting the full weight of popularity on me. One day Tom sort of tossed and left the weight on me about the whole popularity thing, but looking back I liked how Steph treated me. She thought of me as popular. I did not actually know what I was doing, but I figured I would give it a shot. I would lead Steph. The first courageous thing I decided to lead Steph in doing was exploring the old mansion on the old dirt road, the one right down the street. I figured we would not find much trouble, because no one lived on that old dirt road. Steph, you know, one popular thing that popular people do is go on adventures, and I have just the adventure for you, I say. Like what? Steph replies. There is an old mansion not too far from here. Strange, very strange things people have said have happened there. Like what? Steph asked. Well, strange things, like puppets that move on their own, or mirrors that look back, I said, making it up. I said the first thing that came to mind. I needed to impress Steph. We should walk over there and look into the windows, perhaps even go inside, so we can find these strange things. Maybe there are puppets over there walking around right now just waiting to be seen, I exclaimed. Okay, let's go. Steph answered. Tom, are you coming? I anxiously asked. Yes, he said. We began to prepare ourselves for the brief walk over to the old mansion. We had to make sure we would not appear as if we were going to make trouble. Mom, we are going behind the house. We want to walk along the river, I said, covering up what we were really doing. Okay, do not go too far. Your father will be back soon, my mom replied. Steph, Tom, and I walk out the front door of our suburb home. Houses were on both sides of the street. We did our best to appear as if we were just taking an average walk. We did not want the neighbors suspecting anything odd that they would need to report back to our parents. We stayed quiet to one another on the way over to the old mansion. Within minutes we were on an old dirt road. About 100 feet down the old dirt road stood the old mansion. It was dark red in color, and had a small driveway leading up to it. As we walk up the driveway, Steph says, "Well, we made it. This seems like the rest of the houses, nothing out of the normal." That is not the rumor. We must get close to it, perhaps even walk into the inside. If we walk to the front window, and we do not see anyone, we will try the front door, I say. We will look together, Tom bravely says. We slowly walk up to the window and peek onto the inside. We see nothing except a few pieces of furniture covered with white sheets. Looks clear, Steph says. Okay, now we just walk to the front door, and we walk into the inside, I say. We sneak around to the front of the building. We walk to the front door. I gently grab onto the door handle and begin to turn the knob, opening the door. Hold on, wait a second, Steph says. How strange are the things that have happened here. Do not be scared, Steph, they were not that strange. Just a few objects seem to have moved on their own, I said, making up the story to fit in with Steph's emotions. I open the door. Steph fearfully grabs hold of my arm, hoping to not find a ghost or even worse, its owners. We walk into the insides. See, there is nothing to be scared about. It looks normal as can be, I said, comforting Steph. Jill, Steph says. Jill, that is my name. I suppose you are right. There is nothing to be scared about. We quietly walk around the first few rooms of the old mansion. We saw nothing strange. We explored until Tom advised we should leave, so we did not get too deep in exploration and find trouble. We listened and we began to walk out of the house. As we approached the front door, clutter seemed to have been thrown in front of the door. That was there when we came in, right? Tom asked, hoping that nobody was in the house. We at first did not answer him. We just somehow did not see it. Once we were outside and back on the dirt road, Tom asked, "You saw the clutter, right?" It was not there when we walked in. Steph said, "Are you sure? Because that does not seem right." I am positive. I looked at that exact spot when we walked in, I remember, because I was too scared to look into the room, Tom explained. Even if it was not there, I did not look hard enough to remember. I said and took Tom aside and quietly whispered into his ear, I made up the weird and strange things happening at the mansion. It is a normal mansion, Tom. No way, Tom loudly said. I know what I saw. That clutter in front of the door, Jill, was not there. Trust me, it was not there. Even if it was not there, it does not matter. It is not like it's a bad house. I want this old house. Sometimes I make believe it is mine, I said. How about we go back inside and just double check and see what we find? I really, seriously do not believe it. I did not look at that spot when we walked in, so I do not know if it was there. But I do want to see something strange. That is the reason why we came over, Steph said. Strange things happen here. We looked one at another, and we agreed we would walk back to the mansion. We arrived at the front door, and the clutter was still there. I softly stepped over it. We walked through the first room. Everything looked fine. We arrive at the second room and I look at the closet I spent much time at, because I was daydreaming it was my closet. We look and notice clutter was thrown throughout the room. The stuff that was in the closet was now everywhere in that room. Hats, paper, clothes, trash, etc. Oh, my goodness, I cannot believe this. All of this was in the closet. I say, there must be someone else in here. Like you mean a homeless man or something? Tom asked. No, we should leave. What type of homeless man would throw everything out of the closet? I say. We run out of the house, not looking back, and fearing for our lives. We make it to the end of the driveway and begin to walk home. I do not know what that was about, but we should not go back there, I say. What is wrong? Steph said, we went there to see strange things. I mean, should we not be like, excited or something? I try to pretend to be strong. I know I had to be strong. After all, I was the one that led us out here, trying to convince Steph I was popular. I never considered something strange would have happened. Yes, we should be excited. That is what I meant. That is what popular people do. I say, covering up my fear. Tom looked at me as to comfort my confusion. You know what, Jill? It will be all right. It was probably the wind or our minds playing tricks on us. It is not like it will follow us back to our house. Once we get home, everything should be fine. I open the door to my house in a daze. I notice Frog and Sally running up to me, bringing me back into reality per se. Where were you? Sally asks. Yeah, I thought I saw you down by the old mansion, Frog added. Huh, how could they have just seen us? I wonder if my parents just drove by the old mansion. To cover it up, I decided to test out Frog. I said, no, you could not have seen us. We were in the backyard the whole time. I was just joking, Frog answered and began to laugh. Steph, you said you were going to play Candyland with us, Sally said. Steph looked at me and said, come on, let us go play Candyland. As we are playing Candyland, I roll the dice hit the board. Frog says, that old house down the street. Well, Dad said, it was sort of like this game. If you make believe Candyland, you will see candy gush out of the walls. Sally added, he meant not real candy, but if you were to pretend candy, or rather a nice house, to you it becomes a nice house. Candy will not literally gush out of the walls. I was so lost at that moment. At first I thought Frog meant that if we made believe candy to be there, it would sort of like we did. Made believe in strange things at the old mansion, and then once we made believe, the candy or strange things would come true. But once Sally put it into context, I could see Dad saying that he is always telling us to pretend we are happy, and in doing so that will make us happy. Steph looked at me after Frog's comment and said, maybe we should go over there to the old mansion and see if we can make candy gush out of the walls. I gave her the look of no, but she insisted, how about we all walk over very quickly and take a look and make believe, maybe candy will come to us. Yes, Frog said, full of excitement. Sally agreed. Okay, very quickly, but we can't go inside the house, we will just quickly walk to the porch, I said. We all agreed and quickly got up from our board game. We hurried over there. Once we got to the porch, Steph says, Frog, how or what are we going to make believe? Candy, Frog says, candy. Candy. Gush out of these walls, he says in a loud voice and then begins to laugh. Nothing happened at first. After a minute, we heard a noise. What could it be? We all looked in the direction the sound was coming from, wondering to what could be making footsteps. The door handle on the front door begins to move. We gasp as the door swings open. We scream. We began to run. I look back as I am running to see who it was. To my shock, I see my dad. At this point I was relieved, not considering I could be in big trouble. I could not tell which was more frightening, seeing my dad or seeing the monster, but in the midst of fear I was glad to see my dad. Dad, I say, full of surprise. Jill, Children, what are you doing out here? My dad asks. I didn't find the words. Sorry, Mr. Flippy, Steph says, it was my idea. I wanted to make believe with Sally and Frog, and I provoked them to walk over here. That is okay, Steph, Mr. Flippy says, I am glad you are over here. Huh, I said out loud. Yes, I am thinking about buying this old mansion. It just recently was put on the market. It is advertised for $500,000, and that is cheap, Mr. Flippy verbally expressed with a convincing tone in his voice. We all walk back home. On the way back, I say to Steph, that is who moved the stuff out of the closet? Dad. Mr. Flippy says, I didn't move anything out of the closet. 2. Dad's Big Buy. Months went by and the pandemic got worse. My mom totally freaked out, and began to prepare for the end of the world. I must get a year's worth of food, she says to Dad in a frenzy. I can remember going to the store with her as she frantically went up and down the aisle stuffing her cart with items that would last months. Mom, that is fairly well, it is not the end of the world, I said to her as her arms were pulling items off the shelves. Yes, but if we do this now rather than later, we will not have to come back later when everyone is sick, Mom says, defending herself. There is not going to be sick, because there is no sickness, I say with a bold attitude. We rush back to the house, prepared to stay on our property for months. Dad boards up the house for Essie, and we shut the curtains and involuntarily seem to expect the world to end. Months went by and not one person on our street got sick. We did not leave the house, nobody on our street left their house either, although my mom and dad would occasionally go out for business. After some time, my mother and father thought it wise to invest in a bigger house. They spent weeks researching locations and houses. They did not even find a few that would offer anywhere near the privacy that they wanted, until they were shown the mansion down the street. The old mansion stood about an eighth of a mile away from the nearest street. A small forest surrounded the property. If my dad were to buy the property, he would not just be buying the house, but also the 100-acre forest surrounding it. A thick, deep forest of New York surrounded the property. Plenty of spruce and pines for us children to play on, perhaps even build small forts, like kids' houses. I heard my mom discussing with my dad the old mansion a couple of times before my dad gave the news. Kids, we are moving into the old mansion down the street. He was happy. He bought the old mansion for a cheap price, $300,000, which included a 100-acre forest. I was super excited. So were my younger siblings, Sally and Frog. We waited anxiously by his side for months, hoping to catch a word about when we would move. I wanted desperately to play in the huge forest out back behind the mansion, and Sally and Frog both wanted their own room. Dad, when are we moving? I asked that year on a sunny winter. Fitting that you ask, Jill. Your mother and I have decided we are moving, which means you need to start packing the little items in your room. We are planning on moving at the beginning of spring, Dad said. Frog, Sally, and I were excited, and quickly packed the little items we could without totally ruining our living comforts and began to anxiously wait for spring. At the end of February, once we were sure the snow would not be back for another year, my dad began to bring our possessions over to the old mansion that sat hidden on Holden Street. He started out, bringing the things we did not use daily. He slowly moved onto the bigger objects as time went on, tables, dressers, chairs, beds, etc. Once he was sure we could move the rest of our possessions in one afternoon, he told us the plan. Tomorrow, in the morning, we will bring the little left of our possessions to the new house. We will pack our 2 cars tightly with the rest of our possessions. We can make several trips if necessary, my dad explained. I was super excited. I could not sleep at all that night. Thoughts continued to cycle in my mind throughout the night. How would I set up my room? Where would I place my stuff? And mostly, how deep into the forest would I and could I explore? Anxiously and eagerly I waited for morning to come. I continued to look out the window in hopes I would see the sun rise over the houses across the street. Finally, light came through my bedroom window. Shortly after the sun began to rise over the horizon, I cleaned up and went down the stairs to the family room. Noticing Frog and Sally playing on the white carpet, I asked, "Is Dad up yet?" "Yes, he is in the garage," Sally answered. I walk out into the garage. Gasoline fumes blast me in the nose. I look around and notice my dad. He looks at me and says, "Good morning. I hope you are ready for the big move today." "We are moving today." "Great. I have been waiting to move for months," I say, surprised and anxious to complete the move. "Your mother has breakfast ready in the kitchen, waffles, strawberries and bacon, your favorite." I rush into the kitchen. My stomach now is twisting in pain. Happily, I look at my plate, full of food. To assure myself it was mine, I ask my mother, "Is that my plate?" "Sure is," my mother replied. I quickly sat down and picked up a greasy piece of bacon and stuffed it into my mouth. Crunch, crunch, sounded the bacon as I chewed. I reach across the table and grab the maple syrup and pour lots of the sweet stuff onto my waffles. I pick up the fork and knife. I begin to design a creative way to take apart the waffles. 5 minutes later, the waffles and bacon are gone. I quickly grab the glass of fresh squeezed orange juice lovingly placed there by my mother and finish the glass of juice in one big gulp. "Jill, we are completely moving by 10 o'clock. We have other things to do today, so please talk to Frog and Sally, make sure all of their stuff is out of their rooms and loaded into the car. It is particularly important," my mom said. "Yes, I can do that," I answer, feeling a bit nauseous from forcefully putting all that food into my stomach. I had 2 hours to make sure my siblings were ready for the move. I decided I would encourage them with overflavoring the idea of the move, that we would each have our own separate rooms once we were in the new house living in the mansion. "Frog and Sally, once we move to the mansion, we will each have our own rooms. Would it not be great if we were moving over there today? We then could set up our rooms. We could decorate them and make home out of them," I said. "That would be great, Jill, but it seems like we are never going to move. Dad has said we were moving for months now, and we have not moved at all," Frog replied. "That is all about to end today. If you two get your things ready and you bring them down to the cars, I can promise you within a couple of hours we will be in our new house," I said. "Great, that is if you are not lying," Sally said. Frog, full of excitement, added, "We will pack right now." Frog, Sally, and I rushed to get our things together, and brought them down and placed them by our parents' cars. My dad noticed our belongings placed by the car and tightly packed them into the cars. "Are we all ready?" my dad asked before making one last sweep of the house. "Yes," we said and hurried to the car. We opened the doors and got into the inside. A few minutes later and we rush out of the car and run into the mansion. Yes, Sally says, as she quickly found her bedroom. I grabbed the little of my belongings I had that were placed in the car and brought them to my room. Most of my possessions were already in my room. I began to move furniture around and tried out objects here or there. I worked on my bedroom until my mother called me for supper. As we settled into the dining room for supper, we began to discuss the new place. "So, how do we like it?" my dad asked. I forgot to think. I figured we were already beyond that and loving the place. We all sat quiet for a moment before Frog said, "We love it." "Exactly, Dad," I added. "You know, children," my mother begins speaking. "The school should be opening back up in the fall, and so you three will be busy in school, plus your dad and I will return to work. That would mean to make the most out of this summer, because once school starts back up, you three will be busy catching up on the work that you missed." After supper, I walked up the old noisy stairs to my recently set up bedroom and laid down on my Victorian-style bed carefully covered with an extra fluffy feather blanket. I placed my head on the pillow and began to wonder why I must go to school. I do not like school, but usually once I am there I do not mind it as much. I wish this pandemic would last until I am an adult, I say to myself, until I no longer have to go to school. I could then buy a home and live there for as long as people live in houses. I drift off to sleep visualizing my own mansion, and dream of one too. I dreamt I owned a 100-room house, full of precious items. It had a swimming pool on the side of it. I would, while in the mansion, in much time, lose my mind or remembrance of reality, and get lost in the rooms and closets. I played for so long I could not find my way back to the swimming pool I had started my journey at. But once I did, after hundreds of years of playing, children of all ages were in my swimming pool playing. In laughter I ran back inside and found 3 tiny people trying to use 2 hands, and then, I woke up. That was so cool, my favorite dream, I say to myself. I walk downstairs, gaze out the window, and notice fresh snow had fell in the middle of the night. I walk into the kitchen, I glance at Frog sitting at the kitchen table. We do not say a word to one another. I pour a bowl of cereal and take it into the living room. I make my way around the unpacked boxes placed throughout the living room to the couch. I grab the remote to the television and turn it on and I begin to flip through the channels until I find a brightly lit cartoon. I stuff my mouth with the sugar in the bowl until I have quenched the morning hunger. Within minutes Frog comes into the living room asking me how I slept. I slept as normal, I say. He continues the conversation, mentioning it is a new house, that we are in the new house. Yes, Frog, we are in the new house. But now it seems common, plus I am tired of not being home, all of this out of placement makes me feel lacking rest. Frog answers, let us go outside, if we spend a day out there, Mom and Dad will do the unpacking, and once we come back in, we can play as usual. Good idea, I answer. We get dressed preparing ourselves for the snow outside. As we walk out the door, I say, Frog, let us go into the backwoods, I have not seen it back there yet. Plus, Dad bought 100 acres back there and I do not know what will happen to my mind if I am not the first to explore the entire 100 acres. What is 100 acres? Frog asks. It is a lot of land. We could walk out back of our house and we most likely will never find the end of our property, I answer. We walk into the woods, the snow made a crunching sound as we walked. Frog picks up a stick and starts bouncing it off the trees. We walk for 1 hour, before Frog says, I am starting to get hungry. You did not eat breakfast, I said. I did not think about it, I was too anxious to come out here with you. Well, if we go back now, we most likely are going to have to help unpack. Are you okay with that? I ask. Yes, I am fine with that, I am getting hungry. I agree, I am getting really bored, these woods are not as fun as I first thought they would be, I say. We hurry back to the house. Yes, we have made it, I say to Frog. That is good, I am so hungry, I could eat a whole box of cereal, Frog replies. I open the front door and watch Frog run toward the kitchen cupboards. I investigate the living room to see how far my parents got unpacking. My mom notices me looking at her in the living room. So you are here, Jill. I need your help moving some of these boxes up to the attic, my mother says. Okay, which ones? I answer and question. Basically, all the loose ones sitting on the living room floor, she replies. Wow, that is a lot, I say. Frog, after you are done eating, I am going to need your help. As Frog was eating, I began to bring up the boxes. The stairs were narrow, the stairs that led up to the attic. Beforehand I had not gone up to the attic, so I did not know what to expect. Once I was up there, I was surprised. The attic seemed to be larger than the rest of the house except the ceiling of the attic met at a point instead of being flat. I walked through one room and then another. I was looking for the spot my mother placed the other boxes. I figured it was wisest seeing that way when she went to look for something, I could say it is with the rest of the boxes. I walked through one room and then another room, no boxes. And then another and still no boxes. I began to get afraid that I would get lost up there, so I set the box down in the fourth room and hurried down the stairs. I decided to wait for Frog to get done eating before I moved any more boxes. I walked into the kitchen and watched him slowly eat his Captain Munch. As I was watching him, Sally came walking down the stairs. I almost forgot we moved, she said as she stumbled around the kitchen looking for something to eat. Is Steph coming over today? I miss her, Sally said. She was over a couple of days ago, I answer. Yes, but I want to play a game with her, or just hang out, Sally answered. No, she will not be over today. Besides, we have a lot to do. I am going to need your help today bringing up boxes to the attic, I said. Frog will be helping too, I added. Let me get something to eat first, Sally said. We have all day, no need to rush, I said. I walked back into the living room and began to organize the boxes, questioning myself, what is the easiest way to get all those boxes up to the attic? I decided to bring them all to the attic. All throughout the hallway boxes, the hallway was now full of boxes. Frog and Sally walk into the hallway. Sally says, how are we supposed to get to the stairs? What? I ask. Frog says, the boxes are in the way. We will climb over them, I answer. Okay, Frog says. Bang pop crackle and we arrive at the stairs. This should be simple. In a few hours we should be done now that I have placed all the boxes here, I say. A few hours, Frog groans. Come on, if we hurry it might only take an hour, I say. We each grab a box and begin our way up to the attic. It sure is dark up here, Frog says. This attic is huge, Sally adds. Yup, I put the last box I brought up straight down there, I say, hinting toward the further triangle roof rooms of the attic. Without a warning we hear a bunch of noise coming from down the attic stairs. Bang. Crunch. 4 paws came running up the stairs. I looked behind me to confirm my suspicion. I was right, it was Max. Max, I say, I missed you so much, while wrapping my loving arms around him. Max, full of joy with his tongue hanging out, greets all three of us. Immediately afterwards he points his nose toward the back of the attic and begins to bark. "What is it, Max?" Sally says while wrapping her arms around him. "This does not seem right," Frog added. "Let us go back downstairs." "Okay," I said. We set down our boxes and went downstairs to the kitchen. "Mom, who brought Max home?" "I thought he was going to stay with Auntie until next year," I asked. "Your father thought it was a good idea to bring him to the new house," my mother answered. "Max, my beagle, he is my dog. We grew up together. He is 2 years younger than me. I do not know what I would do without him, but he has been gone for 2 months, and I have missed him a lot." I did not say anything about how much I missed him. I figured my dad would not listen. Plus, after so many times of hearing, "Dad knows best," I figured he did. "I am so glad Max is home now. I can sleep in comfort." I would have mentioned how much I missed him, but I figured, "Dad knows best," I said seriously to my mother. "Well, your father does know best. That is why he brought Max home. He mentioned something about the house being too big. Plus someone seems to be moving things in and out of some of the closets," Mom answers. I looked at Frog wondering if he heard that. I decided to keep quiet and hinted to Frog to walk into the living room. Once we got to the living room, I whispered quietly to Frog, "Frog, I did not tell you this, but a while ago, in the past, Steph, Tom, and I came over here to the mansion, before we bought it, without letting Mom or Dad know." "Okay," Frog said, sort of embarrassed. "Well, stuff appeared to be moving on its own," I said. "I do not believe you," Frog answered. "Mom just said Dad is having the same sort of experience. You must believe me," I snapped. "Tell it to Steph." "Mom told me Steph will be over here in a couple of hours," Frog answered. "Jill, did you get the boxes up to the attic yet?" my mom yells from the kitchen. "We are working on it right now," I yell back. "I do not want to go up to the attic," Frog admits. "Come on, if we hurry, we will be done before Steph arrives." "Sally, we are taking up the boxes. Are you going to help?" I yell into the kitchen. She storms out into the hallway and picks up a box only big enough for her small arms to carry. As we walked up the stairs to the attic, we noticed most of the boxes were up there. I looked around, looked at Frog and said, "Dad sure is quick. I guess we are done." I walked back down the stairs, went into the living room, and flipped on the television and began to wait for Steph. Three. Making home. A few weeks passed living in the new house. I never accomplished what I so eagerly expected over the winter, which was setting up and decorating my bedroom. I had huge, ridiculously huge plans a few months ago, and now I am not motivated to carry them out. Today, I most likely would not do it, because Steph is coming over and I must help her. We have made plans for her to spend a couple of weeks at my house, because her mother and father must work in the health department and Steph could be at risk of getting sick by the near-curable virus. A couple of weeks might do it, that is what Steph's father told my dad. So, she will be at my house for a while. She is going to be sleeping in the room next to mine. My father just recently put it together. He put in an extra old bed and a dresser he had stored in the garage. Ring. Ring. The doorbell rang throughout the house. "Jill, Steph is here," my mom yells from the front door. I rush out of my bedroom and rush down the stairs. "Steph," I say, noticing her purple hair in the bright sunlight. "We got a room prepared for you," I say, reaching out my hand to grab hold of hers and begin leading her up the stairs. "You are going to love being here. The room you will be sleeping in is right next to mine." I suddenly notice she has no personal items with her. "Steph, where is your stuff?" I ask. "My dad said he will bring it over later. We were in a rush coming over here." "Okay, good," I answer. "Anyways, this is your room," I say, opening the door to a spacious room, 3 stories above the ground. "Wow." Steph says, "This room is huge." "Yes, it is. The whole building is huge. I bet if we get lost in here it could take days before we found our way home," I say as we giggle. "Why don't we go out into the backyard, possibly even explore the forest out back?" I say. "Okay," Steph answers, "you lead the way." I took hold of Steph's hand and walked her outside. Hot air meets us on the other side of the front door. The smell of fresh forest growth filled the air. "Okay, we have not really gone back here. I have not had the time since the move," I say. I decided to take Steph around the backyard and show her some of my dad's work in the backyard. My dad has big plans for this place, I say. He has not stopped talking about it since we moved. I led Steph to sit down on the grass that had recently sprung up. Last year's grass made a crunch sound as we sat down. The smell of spring was all around as if the winter's forest festivals were being cleaned. I take a deep breath of fresh air, full of life, knowing I had something special, more than special, but the essence of life, the beginnings of life. We stared at the small stream just feet from where we were. It was a couple of inches wide, fresh runoff from the recent snow. I look behind me at the back of our recently purchased house. I say, Steph, look back, look how big our house is. It is as big as a movie star. You are right. How did your dad get such a place for such a cheap price? Steph replied. I do not know, but he mentioned something about it being part of our heritage. I did not get it, I say, as I look behind me to see what made the creaking sound. Steph, look. I say, pointing to a door I have never seen before. Steph looks behind her. What? She asks. That door, I did not notice it before. Plus, it is open. We should go inside and look on the inside. Maybe my dad just went in there, I say. We get up off the soft grass. We approach the door that is partially open. Dad, is that you? I say as we enter the dimly lit room. Wow. Steph says under her breath, this room is beautiful. Look, a piano, I say, as I touch one of the keys. The room looked in good shape. Small streams of light lit up the room. Decorative curtains hung up in the windows, some still shut. Paintings littered the walls, beautiful paintings. The room looked as if someone was recently staying in it. A coffee cup was on the kitchen table and coffee was still on the inside. Paperwork was everywhere, and the way it looked, important paperwork. Steph, it looks as if someone was just here, I say quietly. Yes, you are right. Maybe it is one of your dad's relatives. We should go back outside, I quietly whisper to Steph. We quietly exit the same way we entered, leaving the door open in the same manner as we found it. Once we were several feet away from the house, toward the stream we were sitting at, I said, that was so weird. I cannot believe Dad did not mention that room. The furniture must have been in there, because I do not remember your family having that type of stuff, Steph says. Maybe he does not know about it? Let us go ask, I said. We rush into the house, keeping our mind set. Dad, I say out loud. Yes, girls. I am in here, my dad replies from his library. Upon entering the room, Steph says, wow, you sure have a lot of books. Wonderful job, Dad. This room looks great, I say, adding, did you know about the room out back of the mansion? The one with the huge lock? Yup, but the real estate dealer said there was no key, so I have not gone inside, but maybe there is a treasure inside, my dad says playfully. That is weird, because Steph and I were just in that room. It was not locked. Come with us, we will show you, I say. Surprised, my dad follows us saying, I do not think we are talking about the same room. I looked and there was a big old lock on it. We rush out back, leading my dad by the hand the whole way. We get to the door. I look my dad in the eyes and point to the door. I say, look. My dad says, it looks the same as it did. It has got a big, old lock on it, he says while grabbing hold of the lock and giving it a jingle. Surprised by the look on his face, and hearing the lock, I look toward the door. He was right. A big, old lock was on the door. It was shut so tightly one could not even peek on the inside. I look at Steph. We were just playing, Mr. Flippy, Steph says, making an excuse. She was remarkably familiar with being blamed for things she did not do. Jill's dad laughs, saying, girls, and walks back into the inside. Thanks, Steph. I am guessing he would not have believed us. I say. Exactly, we are probably overtired or something. I mean, look at the lock, it is huge, and a spider's web is still on it. Steph says. Maybe you are right, Steph. Why don't we go into the forest and play out there? Maybe we will get inspired to do as I wanted to, which is build small little houses in the trees, I say. Okay, Steph answers. We move some twigs and bushes out of our way as we enter the forest. Wow, this is beautiful, Steph says as she looks at the sunlight sparkle on the forest floor. I bet Tom would love to come out here with us, I say. Look over there, that is a great spot, I say, pointing to a patch of pine trees, touched with love, and capable of holding little houses. Well, what do you want to do again? Steph asks. See if Tom wants to come out here and build little houses in the trees, I say. We could make them really nice, we could make a lot of them, it will be nice, like a fairy tale woods. I say to Steph. Okay, where are we going to get the wood and nails? Steph asks. I see some at my house, but I do not know if it is enough. But I bet my dad would know. Perhaps Tom has some as well, I say to Steph. Okay, Steph says, agreeing to build. We will build in this spot, Steph says, pointing to the patch of pine trees. Let us go talk to your dad and then I will call up Tom and see if he can spend a couple of days over here at your house, Steph replies. We rush out of the forest and back onto the inside of my home. While Steph calls Tom, I decide to quickly ask my dad if there was any extra wood or nails that we could use for our tree forts. Dad, I say, Steph, Tom, and I are going to build little houses in the trees. Do you have any wood or nails that we can use? Definitely, Jill. Did you see that old shack by the tennis court? Yes, I reply. There is a ton of stuff in there. Use whatever you want, Dad says. Thanks, I gratefully reply and add, can Tom spend a couple of days over here? Ask your mother, Dad says. On the way toward the kitchen to find my mother, Steph surprisingly rushes towards me. I just talked to Tom, Steph says, gasping for breath. His parents are bringing him over in a couple of hours. I quietly walk Steph into the kitchen. Mom, I yell, Tom is spending a couple days over here, I say, hoping she would not argue. Okay, Jill. Mom yells into the kitchen and adds, once he is over here, make sure you spend time with Frog and Sally. They have been away from the others at school, so it is important for them to spend time with you. Okay, I yell back. Let us go up to my room, I quietly say to Steph. So 2 more hours and we will start building. That is when Tom arrives. Right. I say to Steph. Yeah. Steph answers. Within a half hour, Tom knocks on the door. Bang. Bang. The steel ball hanging on the double doors to the entrance of our house sounds. Steph and I rush down the ancient staircase. The old wood creaks with each step. I swing open one of the doors. Tom. I say, greeting him on the inside. Frog, Sally. I yell into the living room. Mom wants you two to hang out with me today. Thinking they might not listen, I add, Tom is here. Both younger children come running into the front hallway. Tom, Sally says. Tom, Frog says. What we are going to do today, I begin explaining, is build tree forts. Everyone gives me their full attention. Dad said the wood in the shed by the tennis court, is ours for the taking. I notice Frog blink with attentiveness. First plan, we investigate what is in that old shed. Once analyzed, we take what is needed to build the first tree fort, I say. Are you ready for this, Tom? Steph asks. Yes, I sure am, my dad said. I could spend the next few months here, Tom says. Well, let us go, I say, looking behind me to call my best bud over, my beagle. Max, come on, we are going into the woods. Max hears. Forepaws running on the wood-stained floor of my parents' new home comes running after us. He lunges out the door full of playfulness. I take my right hand and gently touch the top of Max's head. You are such a good dog, Max, my best friend, along with Jill and Tom, I say, looking at both, making sure I do not offend our relationship. Max looks me in the eyes, communicating a sense of security, lacking abandonment, and full of love. Tom, Steph, Frog, Sally, Max, and I rush toward the shed. Once there, we pop open the old roughly painted double doors of the grayish painted shed. Wow. This place is huge, Tom says. If your father lets us have whatever is in this first room, just in the first room, we can build more than one tree fort. I did not expect this much wood, I say. The planks, I say, these will make nice floors, plus they are small enough for us to carry. We can use the sheets of plywood to level everything out, Tom added. Frog and Sally both grabbed one of the ends of a 2x4 and began to walk toward the forest. Are we going in the right direction? Frog yells with his back toward the forest. Yes, I say as I grab a board to lead the way into the forest. Right here is the spot, I say, placing my board on the ground in the middle of a small clearing. The sunlight shattered through the forest canopy, dancing sparkles of light, as I looked around to find a spot to start building. Right here is a good spot, I hear Steph say, pointing to my right. The branches are large and bunched together exactly right to place wood on the top of them. Okay, let us go get some more wood, I say. Tom, you are going to have to help me get a ladder. Tom and I rush to my father's garage and we both grab an end of the ladder and begin to carry it into the forest. Here, Steph says. Tom and I set the ladder down. I hold the bottom of the ladder as Tom begins walking the ladder into the trees. He places the top end of it on the thickest part of the branch. This should be safe, Tom says. I climb up the ladder to investigate. The smell of pine was thick as I went up. Wow. I say, there is a whole world up here in the trees, a whole new wonderful world. Birds greeted me with chirps each step of the way up in the trees. I gaze around. I think we can just lay the boards over these branches, I say, gazing around the green world of needles made fit for a world of creatures. Tom says from below, we will start handing you up the boards. Okay, toss them up here, I reply. Tom grabs one of the 2x4-inch boards and hands it to me. I carefully place it on the branches, and then another, and another. Once I had 5 good solid boards in the trees, I climbed on them and stood straight up. Tom. Climb up the ladder, I want to see if it will hold your weight. Tom begins to climb up the ladder. Steph follows close behind. Tom, Steph, and I stood on the wood floor we just made in the branches out of 5 boards. We gaze around the tops of the forest. We had never been up that high in a forest before. There was a lot of new smells and sights and had wanted to remain up there. I want to go up, Frog says. Sally agrees. I say, we should get more wood up here first. I do not want you two getting hurt. We begin to race the clock, hoping to get one good solid floor done before the sun set. Tom, hurry, hand me the rest of the wood, I say after enough boards, including a giant piece of plywood, were brought to the spot of our tree forts. Tom hurried to hand me the wood. I lay one board down and then another. It is done. The final piece of the floor was the giant piece of plywood. Tom did that part. In doing so he almost fell off the ladder, the board was so heavy. Sally, Frog, this should be strong enough now, hurry up, come up the ladder before it is too dark to see. They both climb up the ladder together. First Frog, and then Sally right behind him. Wow, this is amazing. Frog says, standing straight up in the trees. Sally does likewise. Okay, it is getting dark, we should go inside now, I yell from below. We rush into our lustfully large house, anxious for morning to come so we can build more in the trees. I did not sleep much that night. My mind was too anxious for morning to come. Throughout the night I made a mental map of what I was going to do the next day, how and what I would build next in the trees. Tom, wake up, I say, walking into the living room. My dad thought it was good for him to sleep on the couch. Tom quickly got up and began preparing himself for a day in the woods. I run around the house getting Frog and Sally ready. Steph had the same experience as me. She woke up early, anxious to start building. She stayed by my side. Soon as everyone was ready, we rushed out into the woods and began right where we left off the night before. Sally, Steph, and Frog carried boards and I put them into the trees. We played, danced, and made lifelong packs in the woods. We spent 4 days building the forts, and when they were done, they were beautiful, like a fairy tale land in the treetops. We built 3 of them, connecting all 3 with wide boards, connecting tree to tree, or rather house to house. From the forest below, the forts were hidden by tree branches, so they were not seen. We told one another nobody would see them either. We did not want to tell anyone about them. On the 5th day of building the forts we decided to paint them. We found some old paint in the shed, eggshell white. We encouraged one another to paint them. We figured it could be easy after Tom said, if painting them is too hard, I will just take the cans of paint and gently pour or splash the cans of paint on them. So, we did our best to paint the small forts that appeared to be a few boards scattered in the trees. Finally, we were done. They are amazing, Tom says. Steph agreed. We will be master craftsmen in our future, Frog added. Okay, great everyone, let us go down and get something to eat, I am hungry. Everyone agreed. As we make our way out of the tree line and into the backyard, I look to my right and notice the door that Steph and I had noticed open days prior was now open. I look at Steph and with my head I notion to look at the door. She sees and gasps. Frog, Tom, do you see that? I ask. What? They ask. The door to our right. Tom says, the door is open. Frog adds, I thought Dad could not open that door. Hard, I will just... 4. Extra space. S. Eing that my dad was a banker, he had pretty good credit with the bank. The summer we moved he took out a huge loan to do some house fixing up, finishing work on the old mansion, not a lot, just enough to give it a fresh look. Some rooms he planned on stripping out the old sheetrock and replacing it with new, plus he planned on painting most of the inside and outside. School had not started yet, so obviously he wanted us children to help. First thing he planned on fixing was the closets. He started in my room first, in the closet in my room. Jill, this is how you take off the old plaster, my dad yells through his face mask, right before he begins to swing his hammer and smash the plaster to pieces. You do not want to swing the hammer hard, just enough that the plaster begins to crumble. We want to keep the little boards under the plaster. My dad says, pointing toward the wall, that now was slightly caved in. Smash. Pop. You see that, Frog? All that wood? My dad asks. Yes, Frog answered. We want to keep all that, my dad says, yelling through his face mask, pointing at the wall. I notice Frog looking around my bedroom. He sees a hammer my dad had placed in the room. He picks it up. He squeezes behind Dad and begins to lightly tap the wall. Dad. Frog says, this side of the closet does not have the little boards. He was on the side of the closet that faced the room Steph had slept in days prior. What? Let me look, my dad says, taking off his face mask. I cannot see, it is too dark in there. Frog, go to the toolbox and grab me that little flashlight, my dad says, full of excitement, looking at Frog. Frog moves quickly to the last place he saw the toolbox. Here you go, Dad, Frog says as he quickly finds the flashlight, and hands it to Dad. Wow. Dad says, there is a whole lot of space in here. And look at that, there is some old boxes in there, he says, completely taking off his face mask and his face from the wall. Dad picks up his hammer and gently and quickly begins to peel off the old sheetrock. Once he made a hole big enough, he reached in and pulled out an old-looking cardboard box. Paper Mill Corp was written on the side of it. Frog, Sally, and I followed him out into the hallway, eager to see what was inside. Let me see, I say, peeking over my dad's shoulder as he set the box down. Dad sets the box down on the old wood-stained floor hallway. He blows off some of the dust that had gathered on the top of the box. He pulled back the cardboard flaps and began to pull out papers, some normal-looking paper and some that appeared to be newspapers. I picked up one of the papers he had placed by the box. I looked at the first page, my eyes glanced at the title, NY paper. I scrolled down to the date, May of 1931, it read on the yellow-stained paper. The Empire State Building has been complete, read the article just under the date. Dad, this paper is old, look, I say, holding up the paper to his face, the Empire State Building now complete. I see it, Jill, my dad says, it was complete in 1950 though. Dad continues speaking, I wonder why they hid that in the wall. It would have made more sense to extend your closet to make it more spacious. He shuffled through the box. It does not look like much here, just some old papers. I will have your mother go through these later, maybe there is some money in it for us. Frog, these 3 boxes I found inside the wall. Yes, Frog answers. Can you bring them down to the kitchen and set them by the kitchen table? By the end of the day the closet was expanded 5 more feet, seeing that Dad could find no reason for wasting the hidden space. The next day, after the drywall settled and dried, I painted the closet pink. Dad told me I could pick whatever color I wanted, so I picked pink. In the next few months, he will finish the rest of the room. Today it will just be the closet. This old house is nice, I can smell the money coming forth from its insides. I cannot see who would leave such a beautiful place abandoned for so long. The place sat empty the whole time I was growing up. The outside must not have been painted for 50 years. The shutters on the house look as if a tornado had come through at some point. I step out of the closet and gaze at my work at painting. It looks good. I say to myself, turning around, noticing the detailed molding hugging the ceiling and the wall. This house sure is beautiful, mystic-like, and rich. The next morning, I woke up from my sleep, and stuck my feet in my warm, fluffy animal doll slippers. What could be making all that noise? I slowly walked to the end of the hall, looking at the hung paintings that my mom recently hung on the hallway walls. I reach one of the several bathrooms in the house. I gaze onto the inside. It is a mess. Dad, it looks like a tornado came through here. I say loudly. Good thing you are up, Jill. I am going to need your help today. Dad says. Okay, let me first get dressed and something to eat. I say. I walk back to my bedroom. I cannot believe it. He ripped out the toilet, tore down the walls, and had the entire window completely out of the bathroom. I quickly get dressed and walk back to the bathroom. Okay, Dad, I am ready. What do you need me to do? Okay, Jill, what I need you to do is clean up the broken wood and smashed drywall. Simply place the smashed material and garbage in a bag. And do not fill the bag so full that you cannot carry it, Dad explained. Got it, I yell back toward him as he had his head under some plumbing. I sat down on the floor, feeling sluggish. I consider my short skirt/dress that I would dirty it, but I figured it was a once and a great while thing. I ought to just be dirty today. As I began to pull out the broken boards and smashed drywall with my hands, I began finding things, shoes, papers, jewelry, etc. Dad, there are things in these walls. I yelled toward him, hoping to surprise and shock him. You can expect that, Jill. When some of these older houses were built, the bank was not the source, or shall I say place to store riches, the home was. Dad says, instead of the people putting money into the bank, they would put it into the walls of their houses. But to get to the money if we wanted it, we would have to completely take the entire house apart, and we are not going to be doing that, my dad commands. I pull out of the wall a photo, I take a good look at it, I considered throwing it out, but I remember it is money, and I toss it back into the wall down the rafters that appeared to have no bottom. The smell of sweet wood, rich maple and pine wood all about the room as I gathered the pieces of drywall in my hands. I gaze up at the carefully designed dark-stained wooden molding hugging the ceiling and the wall. Nobody would have moved out of this house unless they were insane, I say quietly. The mansion was beautiful, marvelous, and gorgeous. It was Victorian-style, built in the early 19th century, survived 2 wars, and now sat deserted. What happened to its former residents? This does not make any sense. As my hands dig through broken pieces of drywall, I notice a black paper-type object in the wall. I carefully pull it out, hoping to not lose it in the void of empty space between the floor and rafters. Yes, I got it. I bring it to my face. A name is written on it. I cannot make it out though. I flip the picture. It is an old black and white photo of a lady in purple, carrying what appeared to be a covered baby. A man dressed in a fine suit was partially standing behind her right side. I will keep this, I say to myself, and place the photo in the pocket of the inside of my dress. Lunch is down here, in the kitchen when you are ready. I look at my dad. Mom has got us lunch ready. Let's go eat. Dad says, picking me straight up off the floor. Drywall fibers fall off my dress, making a crumbling sound. We quickly rush into the kitchen. I glance at my usual chair and happen to notice the papers we found in the closet still under Frog's kitchen chair. We forgot about the box. I sit down ready to eat. The smell was so intense I could have thought I was eating. In a hurry, without consideration, I picked up my grilled cheese sandwich and chow it down in one big bite. Jill. That is not very ladylike. Sorry, Mom, I was so hungry, I say and quickly change the topic. Dad, the box of papers we found in the closet is under Frog's chair. We forgot all about it. Oh yeah, bring it to me. I wanted to see if maybe I could find some money in there. I slide out of my chair, crouch down and pick up the box. I bring it to my dad. He slides his plate across the table and places the box full of papers on the table. He begins to look through them, hoping to find some money. I, hoping to escape work in the bathroom, take the opportunity to find Frog. I look around the house wondering how I will find him this time in such a huge house. After checking a few rooms, I got tired and sat down on the blue living room sofa. I rested my mind. Suddenly I recalled the photo I had in the pocket of my dress. I pull it out quickly, gazed at the lady in the photo wondering who it could be. I felt as if I knew the lady. She had a familiar face. Perhaps I met her in another dimension, I say to myself. My eyes began to gaze and stare long at the lady in the photo. The lady was so beautiful, it is as if something was in the photo keeping me from turning away. Maybe it was her eyes, maybe it was her hair, something held my eyes to that photo. The trees behind her began to sway in the wind as soft music sounded in the air. This was coming through the photo, as if I were there myself. The man behind her welcoming me home. I could almost hear this beautiful lady, as a mother calling me, welcoming me to her world, to our home. The baby in her arms began to glow bright white, or at least the clothes did. I could not get a clear picture of what the baby looked like. Who could it be? I listened to this gentle imaginary music for what seemed like 10 minutes, and then I hear Frog say, Jill, you have been in the same spot for a whole hour. It has not been an hour, Frog, I barked back. My dad walks into the living room. Okay, Jill, let us go back up to the bathroom. I thought you were going through the box, I responded, frustrated. I did. Later that day, Steph showed up at my house. Dad, I am done. Steph is here. I run down the stairs. Beforehand changing out of my drywall-stained dress, I put on some jeans. Later in my room. Steph come into the closet. We totally redid it. Plus, we found empty space, and added it to the closet, so now it is a lot bigger in here. Steph walks through the closet door. A lamp hangs from the ceiling. I did not get a really good look at the old closet, so I do not have anything to compare it to, Steph says, looking at me in the back of the closet. Clean, dry clothes hung in her way of clearly seeing toward the back of the closet. Steph sits down. I softly walk closer and sit down in front of her. I begin to gaze at her. What? Steph says. Huh. I respond. You were looking at me like you were in love, like you were going to kiss me, Steph says. Steph's hair began to appear to move although there was no wind. I gazed into her eyes pulling stuff, either out of her, or it came out of my thoughts of her. Whatever it was, I must keep it. I began to dream of our friendship, pictures, writing, making life work. I must be mature, I must grow. 5 minutes passed. I gazed at Steph. I realized I must be causing her questions. I will answer her. I'm not in love, I just want to make growth work, I said, comforting her feelings of discomfort. Growth meaning? Like fun. Why did you come over? For fun. Yes, Steph answered. Well, pictures are fun, writing is fun, depending on our life together sounds fun, it seems right, I say, hoping she was imagining what I was, which was a sure world. Steph looks at me and says without mature consideration, we will always be together. We spent hours in the closet, ridding of the pandemic, comforting one another and the world we were creating together. At no point did I consider a threat. Long ago I had taken strength to keep away the pandemic. We must have drifted off, because the next thing I recall is waking up in the closet, Steph's head resting on my stomach. The closet door was still open. The morning light, and its fresh appearance was just feet away from me. Bizarre aromas fill my nostrils, as if the house were full of a variety of ancient particles. Some smelled as if they were luxuries, but not what appears to be luxury currently, but luxury from a distant, very distant past. Through the particles in the air, I was changing. I could sense myself changing. It was as if I could not do the more I was doing before, as if I had to now, tell myself to stop having fun. Steph, wake up, morning is here. Steph picks up her head. Okay, I am up. Steph responds, stumbling out of the closet, what are we going to do today? I want to study a picture I found. I want to spend some time in my father's library. But first we must get something to eat. What would you like to eat? I ask. Something quick, something we can take into the library with us. I seriously have not woken up yet. Steph responds. Steph grabs a couple of swirl muffins off the counter placed there by my mother and we walk into the library. Dad, can we look through some of your old books in the library? I ask my dad as he was walking into the living room. Yes, sure, he says with a happy tone in his voice. His library was huge, over 300 books. They were wonderful books, lightening up the room, giving a sense of an adventure, exploration, and long life. I loved my dad's way of life. I wanted to be just like him. I marvel and covet my dad's books, wishing I could have them now all for myself. I could collect more of them, filling every cavity within me, then I shall be happy. My hand reaches for the first thickest book my eyes laid on. I pull it off the shelf. Quickly I open it, longing to see what was on the inside. My eyes will not rest. I cannot get a clear vision of the book. I lead Steph over to the cotton and leather furniture. I fix my mind on the book. I see a few pictures, some old newspapers that were part of the book. Some of the pictures look like my house. I wonder if it is. My eyes stroll down to the details of the photo. I do not see Holden Street, I say. That must be, look at the giant rock to the right. I know that rock. My eyes always drift over there when coming to your house, and I always have the same thought, would it not be fun to live in such a rock, sort of like a dollhouse nobody knows exists? I take the photo out of my pocket, and wander toward the picture. Who could this lady be? I truly love her, I say to Steph. Right there. Steph says. What? That newspaper article says, multi-dollar family's mansion gets a new street name for their family inheritance that resides in Waxtown, Massachusetts. And look at the picture, that must be your house, right there in the newspaper that is published in the book. A date is written on the newspaper. 1720, Steph says, full of excitement, hoping to receive part of the treasure, if there was any treasure at all. I flip one page and then another. This looks like the lady in this photo, I say, shoving the photo in Steph's face. Steph reads from the book. Mrs. Rugg, a daughter of Rugg's Paper Co., vanishes on the property. The year 1820. I wonder if Mrs. Rugg is the lady in the photo. If it is, I wonder what happened to the child. According to the article, the woman, when she vanished, she was the richest person in Massachusetts, Steph says. Steph, what do you think of past lives? What do you mean? Like, what if years ago we forgot, like amnesia, who we were, and now we can reclaim our past lives, I say, opening a fragile idea. When we were upstairs in the closet, Steph begins saying, I could almost feel the lives lived here, as if I had been living here. But I think I know why. Say you froze an object. Once you unfreeze it, it appears to be fresh. Do you mean it is the same thing with the closet? The closet your dad found a cavity in? Steph asks. Yes, that is the idea, I answer. That must have been the reason for the... Steph paused and got quite, sort of embarrassed. You noticed it then? I say, relieved I had someone to share in my experience. The strong smells, my dad calls them highs. Yup, sure did, Steph says. I first noticed it in this photo, I say, picking it up, presenting it before Steph's eyes. I feel the photo move out of my hands. She is a beautiful woman. I wonder who the baby is in her hands. Maybe it is you, I reply. Yes, it could be, but a little too close for comfort. Even if we had lived here in a past life, how could we have forgotten? I would, now, be afraid to wake up to a nightmare, Steph says. That is what I thought of too, but the more I get the high, the more I daydream about. I say and begin to drift off in my thoughts. Steph looks at me. What? About what? I do not know. Sometimes meeting the expectations around me feels a little burdensome, I admit, sort of humiliated. Well, Steph says, whatever is burdensome will not be able to burden us all that much longer if we did live here in the past. Because the past is stronger, I say, looking at Steph shake her head up and down, agreeing. Did you probe Frog or Sally? Steph asks. Sometimes younger children can pick up on these type things better. No, but we should, I reply. Suddenly Frog and Sally surprise the both of us as they come rushing into my dad's study. What are you two doing? Sally asks. Steph still had the mysterious photo in her hands. She quickly brings it up to Sally's face and then to Frog's. We are trying to discover more about this picture, Steph says. Where did you get it? Sally asks. I found it in the wall of the upstairs bathroom, I say. Bathroom? What would that be doing in the bathroom? Frog asks. I do not know, but the other day when Dad was busting the bathroom walls to pieces, he gave me the job of picking up the crumbs. I did not only find this picture, but shoes, papers, and some chains, perhaps jewelry, I say. Sally snatches the picture out of Steph's hand, turns away from us and examines the photo. She is beautiful, Sally says. I wish I could live there. That is what I thought, I say, looking at Steph. Frog noticed the closeness between Steph and I, and turned towards Sally, and says, let me see. Where did you get that? Frog asks in a startled voice. In the bathroom wall. Why? I see a lady that looks like that walking outside of my bedroom window at night. Sometimes she crawls up the wall and asks me to open the window, Frog says. All the room sounded quiet, and in disbelief. You are lying. That is not possible. How could she crawl up the wall? Do not believe me, then it just looks like that lady, Frog says while pointing at the photo. What about you, Sally? Any thoughts on the picture? Steph asks. Not the picture, but something lives in my closet. It sounds funny. After I hear it, things will start coming out of the closet. Even clothes will come out. They will be tossed onto my bed, Sally answers. I begin to put their words into my consideration part of the brain. I consider their words. Maybe that thing, Sally, was the thing I saw last fall when Steph, Tom, and I snooped over here to the mansion. What did you see? Stuff thrown out of the closet. Well, actually I did not see it thrown, but 1 minute it was not there, and the next it was all over the room. 5. Empty space making space. Very day since the move, the day we moved into the old mansion on Holden Street, my dad spends hours a day in front of the television. Some of our conversations. Dad, will you take us to the park? I must keep up with the pandemic, he will say while his eyes are glued to the television. Che, will you take this out to the shed? Yes, but first let me catch up on the news. It is as if he steps away from the television, the entire world will die and leave him wondering what happened to the rest of the world. This could be it. This could be the end of mankind, my dad says. I quickly, from time to time, will watch with him, and I will take a little from the news and notice not all that much has changed, but still, despite that fact, the people on the news insists on everyone staying home. Just the other day they threw up the red flag. The red flag means the severe possibility that this virus could wipe out all of mankind, including many of the animals. I do not know if I really in my heart of hearts believe that, but my dad seems to. My dad daily must remove all doubt. I do not know, I have not been taught how to respond, so I just laugh as he anxiously watches. Steph must know something about what I am thinking, because most of the time she always acts as if she understands what I do, whether around the house or at school. If I laugh at Dad, she will either punch me or give me a look like, Do not, Jill. Again, nobody taught me anything about this. I must be right, despite Steph treating me sometimes as the bad person. Dad, can Steph come over today? Ask your mother. Mom, Steph is coming over today. Okay, Jill, but once she gets here, wash her up and give her a change of clothes. I do not want you getting sick. If something is on her clothes or skin, it can spread to the rest of the house. Huh, she sure is taking the sickness far. Doorbell rings. I rush to the door expecting to see Jill in front of her father's car. I quickly open the door, preparing my mouth to utter Steph. Tom. What are you doing here? He tosses a bag down and says, I must stay here. Tell your parents I have nowhere else to stay, Tom says. Wait a minute, what happened? I say. My parents are in the hospital with an 80% chance of surviving the sickness, Tom explains. The sickness, the pandemic sickness. Yes, Tom says. Willing and anxious to help a friend in need, I say, okay Tom, go into the bathroom, jump in the shower, do not touch nothing but the shower handle, I say. Tom begins to walk up the stairs. And Tom, I say, do not use the same clothes you came here with. I will ask Dad if you can use some of his, I say. I rush into the kitchen beyond the rooms to where the front door is. Mom, Dad, I pause. Tom's parents are dying of the sickness. What? Dad asks. You mean? Yes, I say. I sent him up to take a shower, and Dad, I told him you would give him some clean clothes. Okay. Dad answers. So, I pause for a moment. Can Tom have some of your clothes? Of course, Jill, let us go get him some. As we make our way up the stairs, Dad says, he did not touch anything, right? I do not think so, I mentioned that to him. We walk into my dad's huge Victorian-style bedroom. 4 windows covered with dark brown curtains were creatively placed on the outer wall. Dad swings open the double folding doors to his closet. He begins picking out pieces of clothes and placing them in my arms. Dad, he does not need all of these, just one set. We will wash his so that he can change back into them. Dad gives sort of an embarrassed smile. Dad picks out what he wants to give. We walk down the hallway toward the bathroom Tom was showering in. Tom, fresh clothes are out here in front of the door. I yell through the bathroom door. Okay. I hear through the door as we hear the water pouring into the tub. Jill, is Steph still coming today? Dad asks. Yes, and she plans on a couple of days here. I told you about it, I say, hoping he was not going to reconsider. Anyways, Dad, the pandemic, and stuff. That is fine, Jill. Actually, I am thinking they should be over more often, because if society begins to collapse, we do not want to be alone, Dad says. Relieved and feeling liberated, we walk down the luxurious staircase, carpeted just enough to catch our feet from stepping onto the wood. The doorbell rings. That is Jill. I open the door. Honk honk. Steph's dad sounds from within his car and waves his hand at me. I wave back. Steph. Good, you made it? Tom is upstairs in the shower. Let us wait and hang out for a moment outside. Dad wants you to take a shower to get rid of any virus-type stuff. I crack open the door and peek inside. Tom hurries up. Steph is here and needs the shower. I am done, Tom says, walking down the stairs. We rush inside, glancing at Dad's oversized clothes on Tom's body. Those look good on you, Tom, I say, warming the environment. I whisper to Steph, Steph, try not to touch anything until you are super clean. I will get you clothes from my room. Okay, Steph says with a tiny bit of laughter in her voice. I watch Steph close the oakwood bathroom door. Small square designs are now facing me. This sure is a rich house. I rush into my room. I wonder, what clothes would look best on Steph? Purple. I dig through some of the boxes I purposely left after the move, thinking I was saving space. I moved so quickly the boxes will never look the same again. I found a couple purple sets of clothes. Steph will look good in these. She will be so happy, saying, you are such a marvelous person, such a good friend. My type of delight? Steph, I say behind the door leading to the bathroom, I am coming in. I crack open the door. Hot water steam pours out onto the colder hallway. I toss in the clothes, saying, here are some of my best clothes. Thanks, I hear through the water splattering in the tub. I close the door and make my way to find Tom. I needed to find out how bad his case was. Were his parents dying? I walk into the kitchen. Tom is sitting at the bar eating cereal my mother must have given him. Now you are all cleaned up. I can give you a hug. I say to Tom. I wrap my arms around him. It is a good thing you did not get sick, because you would not be feeling this hug right now, nor would I be able to be close to you. You are right, Jill, Tom says, looking over his shoulder, giving me a look of acceptance, a brave look of acceptance. What happened at home? I ask, wondering what was happening on the outside world. I do not really know, Jill, Tom says, looking at my mother and then at my father. He pauses for a moment, and then says, I do not really want to say this in front of your parents, because I do not want to make my parents look bad, but reality is not reality. Go ahead, Tom, it is a strange time for everyone, my dad insists. Well, Tom rolls his eyes back, recalling the past few days. My mom had been mentioning others disappearing for a while. My dad insists that it was the people simply hiding out in their houses. My mom never saw it that way. Maybe it was the fever, but toward the end of her independence she started saying, Frank, the people, they are all gone. I cannot find any of our friends, she would say, crying and panicking. I could not spend much time with her, but she sure was, in other words, freaking out. Tom looked at my dad in hopes of comfort. I almost thought Tom was going to cry as he looked my father in the eyes. Tom then looked at me, put his head into his arms resting on the table. I could see curiosity in my dad's eyes, as if he had 1,000 questions. I knew he would not ask, mostly because the situation was sensitive. It will be all right, Tom, Dad says, burying all his desired questions deep within himself. I hear Steph walking down the stairs. Within moments she walks into the kitchen. I look at Steph. I say, Tom's mom said all the people on the entire planet have disappeared. I did not say that, Jill, Tom says. What happened? Steph asks. My mom cannot find the reality she knows was there. She said that she has not seen anyone in months, and she has searched. She is close to being dead now, Tom explains. What about Frank? Steph asks. Well, Tom pauses. He was put into the hospital when he broke into the neighbors. The police tied him up as he shouted, they have all disappeared. Huh, weird, I say and look at my dad. You know, Dad, I have not seen another person in almost a whole year. Jill, my mother says, keeping me under her authority, under her knowledge. My dad adds, Jill, I am almost sure the people are still out there. Every day I turn on the news, and every day the people who are broadcasting the news are on there. Steph says, it could have been re-recorded. That is what my parents were saying, Tom says, relieving himself. Okay, kids, that is enough, my mother says, attempting to change the subject. We all sat quiet for a moment. Steph blurts, I have not seen anyone either. My father quickly interrupts, kids, enough, why don't you go play? We begin to leave the kitchen table. My dad says, and Tom, you can use the spare bedroom next to ours, we just recently redid it, my father says, making sure he himself could ignore us and go back to work. Okay, Mr. Flippy, will do, Tom says. We walk into the pool/gaming room. We sit down on a couch my father had placed in hopes to entertain family and friends. Tom sets his backpack on the floor, us not noticing it could be tainted with the virus. I at this point did not believe in it. I only did if my parents told me to. Tom unzips his backpack and pulls out a newspaper. Look here, Tom says, last week's newspaper says 2 million were placed in the cemeteries in the past 5 months. That is in the state of Massachusetts. All dead. What? I grab the paper out of Tom's hand. 20 of the state cemeteries are now full to capacity, I read out of the Watt Times. The weird part about that, Jill, is everyone still has their televisions, lights, and radios on in their houses. It is like a cover-up, but not a cover-up. Only the educated people will know the truth, Tom says fearfully. I was not so sure my parents were sick, Tom says with a little doubt in his voice, but they were acting very strangely. Tom turns his head and mumbles, they broke into a couple of houses. Your parents did? Steph asks. Yes, they needed to check on why the supposed dead people were still using their household stuff. It could have just been because the sickness moved so quickly, that the dead people appear to still be alive. I add. Yes, it could be, but according to my mother, the dead's cars were pulling in and out of these people's garages, Tom says. Steph slides down into the couch, relaxing every muscle. The whole sickness and pandemic is like that, Tom. Cars driving on their own, Tom argues. Sickness and graves are supposed to not make us question, Steph says. That is sort of covered up too, Tom. Maybe you are accidentally hitting who you are, thinking too far out, I say. You are right, I am here. I could have stood up for my parents, I know that, Jill, Tom says, defending himself. Night approached and we began to fall asleep on the couch, the same couch we had been sitting at most of the day. Kids, my dad says, it is almost bedtime. Go clean up. Dad, can Tom and Jill, along with me, spend this night in the closet? I ask. Why do you want to spend the night in the closet? My mother asks as she walks into the room. I look at the blue lit background of the fish tank as my mother walks by. So, we can comfort Tom, I say. Steph adds, his parents are sick. Okay, that will be fine, my dad answers. Yes. I open the closet door in the hallway and pull out the clean blue and black sleeping bags my mother stored, ready to be pulled out at any moment and used on the spot. I hand one to Steph and then one to Tom. We walk them back to my room. We carefully place the sleeping bags on the closet floor. I walk toward my bed to grab my comforter. On the way I notice the electrical outlet in the front of the closet. I will grab my nightlight. I quickly grab both and bring them back to the closet. I first plug in the blue nightlight. I lay down my comforter, my blanket. Clothes hung above me. Steph says, it feels weird not have been in school for the past year. Yes, it sure does. I almost feel like I am dead. It is like if I do not do something, anything, I will feel dead, Tom adds. To add into the conversation, I say, my dad keeps acting funny. I do not notice school all that much. I just simply pretend I am on summer break, but I cannot help consider something horrible seeing my dad watch the news the way he does. In comforting ourselves into the night, we fall asleep. I woke up in the morning expecting to find Steph and Tom close by, in the same manner as we fell asleep. Nothing. Only the closet. I was so alarmed I did not notice the clothes hanging above us were gone. I pull back the comforter that hours before I placed in the closet. I put my feet on the cold wooden floor as I stand up. I slowly walk to the entrance of the closet, being led by a strange light, an almost ancient light. As I get to the door entrance, I see dirt on the floor, along with some dried up maple leaves. Steph. Tom. I get to the door expecting to see my bed across from the entrance of the door. I gasp. I could not believe my eyes. A forest. A strange forest lit by some strange light. What an odd forest. I begin to walk out. I pause. What could be out there? The forest almost seemed as if it were on the inside of some sort of dome, but it could not be. I could see blue sky above the tree line. The air was soft and warm. I think I was somewhere rather than not. I will walk out. Dead leaves crumbled under my feet. I do not hear anyone. I walk about 10 feet to the right of the closet door, only to notice none of the rest of the house is there, just half of my bedroom, and most of my closet. As I got to the edge of the room, the forest abruptly stopped. I could see a field that sloped downward. I sure would love to run down that hill. The environment made me feel as if I could play here for an exceptionally long time. Tom? Steph, are you here? I yell into the surrounding environment. I was hoping I would hear them. I wanted someone else to share this experience with. No answer, nothing, but the sound of a windless environment, no air, but an atmosphere of the indoors of a huge building. I walk to what once was the front of our house. Small bushes sit in the front wall of my bedroom where there was the hallway. I look to my left. Apple trees, or at least I think they are apple trees. I walk towards them. Big red juicy apples hung from the tree. Vines of tomato plants grow beneath them. I pick an apple. I put it to my mouth and attempt to take a bite when I am startled by a sound. I listen. It sounds like something in the bushes. It sounds like it is struggling or stressing to move. I walk over to the sound that speaks a fearful, and twisted, yet wild atmosphere. What could it be? I crouch down and begin to move the tomato vines. I look straight ahead in the vines, a small nest, a compacted area. I see a small critter. I feel as if it is poisoning me with the sound it is making. I cannot look away. I cannot stop listening. Once the sound reaches the core of my being, it asks if it can keep me. No, no, I say out loud and stumble backwards. I scramble to my feet and run toward the closet. I look to my left, noticing the giant hole straight through the left side of my bedroom. I run into the closet. I shut the door behind me. I quickly make my way toward the back of the closet. I take my comforter with me. I cover myself, hoping nothing finds me. No. No. I say. Fearing I will never find home again, I shut my eyes. I suddenly hear a voice. I hear Tom's voice. I wonder if that is Tom or someone pretending to be Tom. I will risk it. I pull back my comforter covering my face. Jill, Jill. What is wrong? Tom says, hovering over my face. Tom. I yell, relieved. What is wrong, Jill? I hear Steph say toward the front of the closet. They appear to not have known. Moments ago, the entire bedroom was missing, leaves covered the floor to the entrance to the closet, now all looks the same as when I laid my head down. Jill, are you alright? Are you okay? Tom asks, giving me a look of protection. I did not know what to say. First, I must assure myself that this closet is the same closet as before. I jump out of my blankets, rush toward my bedroom, and examine the room, the hallway, and several other rooms before going back to the closet, to Steph and Tom. I do not know how to tell you both this, but just minutes ago I stumble in my words. I cannot explain what I just saw, so I said, I was in a different world. Were you dreaming? Tom asks. Dreams can be like that, Steph adds. No and yes. But I am sure it was a whole different world. I say. They both gave me a strange look, comforting, welcoming me back into my room. We stand there for a moment. Jill says, I am hungry, while tapping me on the shoulder. Right then I knew it was an isolated experience. I must pretend it never happened. Yes, I am hungry too. Let's go get something to eat, I say. My mother just bought a whole month worth of the cinnamon, like breadstick. If we pop them into the microwave, they get soft, like a pancake. They are so good. Once we got down the stairs and into the kitchen, we began to ready ourselves for the day. As the food was warming, Steph says, So, Jill, you were mentioning something upstairs about getting lost in a closet. Yes, exactly. Lost. Good thing I found my way back. How did you do that? Tom asks. I was running from a monster or something and hid under my covers. Six. Lost in a closet. D. Eyes went by and both Steph and Tom stayed at my house. After 3 weeks of Tom and Steph staying at my house, Tom's parents died, and Steph's parents got sick. According to my father, the sickness has reached a level of severity. He will not let us leave the house unless it is in the backyard. Steph, Tom, Frog, Sally, and I pass the days by playing. We do mention the truth to one another, because we will not believe Tom and Steph's parents have abandoned them. Over the past few weeks, ignoring the present reality, both Tom and Steph sort of lost touch with reality. I did not need to ignore the truth, because in my world everything was about the same except my dad and I do not spend as much time together. He is usually watching the news. My mom does not act the way she did just a year ago. She is constantly cleaning the house, continuously wiping everything down. My dad will not open the windows in fear the virus could be in the air. My parents told both Steph and Tom that they could permanently move in due to their parents' hardships, that they would over the years buy them new material possessions. My dad already promised Tom, and they both decided for Tom to stay with us until he is 18. Not long after, Steph's parents also passed, leaving Steph with the same clothes she had on the last time her father dropped her off. My mother and father did the same thing with her as they did with Tom. They agreed to let her live in our mansion until she was 18, promising to buy her all new material things. Our family grew. Now my parents appeared to have 5 children: Frog, Sally, Steph, Tom, and me. Because the situation was so odd, and because the schools were permanently closed, the 5 of us stuck together, playing all day long. My dad and mom rarely noticed us. They were so tied up in civilization ending, that they could not focus on the structured system that was handed to them, so they let us do whatever we wanted. What to do today? Tom says as us children gathered in the kitchen. Most of the time in the morning we would happen to get up at the same time. I began to think of stuff we could do as I pour myself a big bowl of cereal. The Treefords have not seen us for a while, I say. It is cold out, Jill. It is November, Steph adds. Maybe we should add on to them, so that they are warm on the inside. How are we going to do that? I ask. Tom did not have the answer and gives an idea. Leaves? What if we insulate them with leaves? Steph says, if we use leaves, we will not be sure if another critter is in there with us. True, Tom says. Maybe I could run over to my parents' house and grab some of their stuff like insulation, Tom says. That might be a good idea, Tom, I say. It is only a 15-minute walk, Tom says. If you grab their stuff, how are you going to carry it all back? Steph asks. Well, Tom pauses a moment figuring out the rest of the plan. We do not need all that much stuff. A box of heavy-duty plastic, some foam, insulation. Tom pauses again. You two, plus Frog and Sally will have to go over with me. I say, my parents are not going to let us go. If we do not bring Frog or Sally, we simply do not tell them, Tom answered. If we are going, we better go now. Mom and Dad are usually off doing their thing right around this time. We most likely have a couple of hours before they figure out we are gone, I say. Steph adds, that gives us about 1 hour. We scramble to dress and quietly make our way out the back door, mentioning to Frog and Sally we would be at our tree forts, hoping they would not come looking for us. Most likely they will not. They are slow to wake up in the morning. We dart in the woods. By taking the woods the neighbors will not see us, I directed. Within 15 minutes we reach Tom's house. Surprisingly, we find his garage doors open. Tom mentioned beforehand they were closed. We sneak into the garage. Once inside, Tom directs to listen to the happenings of the inside of his house. The television was still on, and it sounded like someone was in there. Tom, I whisper, it sounds like your parents are in there. We ignore the sounds. Tom rushes to gather the supplies. I walk over to the window in the door separating the garage from the living room. I peek inside. To my surprise, I see the electronics being moved as if someone was using them. Tom, I whisper. Surprisingly, the vacuum turns on inside the house. Jill, grab some of this stuff, we got to get out of here. I rush over and grab the box of plastic. Tom grabs the insulation. Steph grabs a giant staple gun and a tub of nails. We rush out back in the forest. That was odd, Steph begins saying. The television was still on. I could almost feel your parents still living there. Steph, the strange part is, this does not look the same, Tom says. What? The forest, I cannot remember the forest. The plants do not look the same. It is too dark out here to tell, I answer. But it is not for me. I always come back here, because the gas station is just over that hill, but where are the lights to the store? We must go back. I am serious. Jill, this is not the same forest. Okay, but we have to hurry. My parents will notice we are missing any time now, I answer. We rush back to Tom's house. Once we reach his backyard dimly lit by his kitchen light, we hear a sound in the forest, the same sound I heard when I was in the tomato patches. I look at Tom. That is the sound I heard the other night when we were in the closet, when I told you I was translated into another world. Steph begins to move toward the sound, being drawn to it. Steph, do not go toward the sound, I say. Steph ignores me. Grab Steph, we will run into my house, Tom says. I grab Steph by the arm and pull her in the same direction Tom began running in. Steph comes to her senses following Tom and me. We rush into the garage. Tom begins to shut the door. We stop making noises and listen in silence. Steph looks to the right, out a window, looks back at me and begins tapping on my shoulder. I look toward where she is pointing. I gasp. A lady is in the window. Who could it be? I know it is the lady from the photo I found. She places both hands on the window, making a bang sound against the glass. We scream, we run. Tom bursts through the door leading from the garage to his parents' living room. He slams shut the door behind us. Tom says, follow me, as he leads us toward his bedroom. We get to his room. I shut the door as Tom makes his way to his heavy dresser. Steph, help me move this against the door, Tom says, pointing toward the dresser. Steph rushes to the dresser. Together they both slowly walk the dresser to the front of the bedroom door. Tom pushes it face down in front of his bedroom door. He then rushes to his fresh appearing made bed and picks it up. Blankets and bed sheets fall off as he places it against his one and only bedroom window. Tom sits down, catching his breath. Steph and I do likewise. Within 5 minutes we hear the living room entrance door open. Soft, gentle footsteps gracefully walk up the stairs leading to Tom's bedroom. Soft singing and soft words could be heard, words that chilled us to the core of our being. It was as if I could remember her tormenting us, but I cannot pinpoint to when. Quietly we sit crouched down in Tom's bedroom. Small taps on the bedroom door. A small whisper comes through the door. Let me in, kids. I want to make friends. Tap. Tap. On the bedroom door. A baby begins to laugh out in the darkness of the hallway. Chills run up my spine. My heart freezes in my chest. If you do not want to open the door for me, open the door for the baby. Tommy, your parents are out here. They would want you to come out and protect their house. Leave, lady, leave. Tom commands. You kids are not supposed to be here, the woman replies. Come out here and maybe I can spare you the trouble, the woman outside of the bedroom door says. This place looks real, does it not, Jill? Open your eyes, I bet you do not know how much control I have over you, the strange-sounding lady says. I sat thinking about her words for a moment. I look at Tom and say, we are dreaming, we are still in the closet. I reach over and grab Tom by the shoulder. As I reach over, my body within the closet at my parents' house is doing the same thing. Now being in two places at once, Tom, Steph, and I both awake in the closet, letting go of the world we were just in. Steph, I say. She quickly picks her head up from the blanket that was covering it. You two were there? I ask. Yes, Jill, I could have almost guaranteed that place existed. We never awoke, Steph adds. I am hungry, let's go get something to eat, I say. We rush into the kitchen in the same fashion we did just hours prior before we thought we walked to Tom's house. We begin preparing the same food as we had thought we had eaten. Tom, do you still want to go over to your parents' house to get material for the tree forts? I ask, sort of joking. Yes, sure, that is if the strange lady is not over there, Tom says as we begin laughing. Steph, you do remember? I ask. Yes, she pauses for a moment, that was not a dream. You had mentioned something in the dream, that is if you were dreaming about going to a strange world, Steph says cautiously. Well, I do not want to get so deep that we believe it, I pause and whisper, we could be there right now. Steph says, I am still curious about the people living, but not living in their houses, we should get our mind off of this house and spy on the neighbors. Good idea. Tom says, I need to know what killed my parents, or if they are even dead, what if it is all a lie? My parents said something about a huge cover-up, Tom says, anticipating the biggest reveal of his life. But what if we get caught? I ask. We already are caught if you think hard about last night, Tom says. True, Jill, that was not normal, everybody taught me that type thing does not happen, Steph says, pointing up toward my closet. So, we will explore, same idea, I said, as in the dream. My parents are busy, but we have a couple of hours to pretend we are working on our tree forts. I say. Do not tell Frog or Sally. We quickly get something to eat and tell my mom we are going to play out by the tree fort. We rush out the back door. We take the back way into the woods and begin to snoop on other properties. The first window we peek into, lights were on, and food was prepared, but no people. Something appeared to be happening with the second and third house we arrived at. I want to rush over to my parents' house, Tom explains. We are going with you, Steph says. We quickly run through the woods and arrive at Tom's parents' house. Tom had the key, so we went inside. Everything about the house was so strange, televisions, radios, and lights were still on. Fresh food was prepared on the table. This is strange, Tom says. Let's grab some stuff for our tree forts, just so if we get caught, we appear to have another reason. We rush into the garage and grab the same items we grabbed the first time. Funny, I say, the items are in the same spot as they were the first time we came over here. Yes, that is strange, Tom adds. We rush into the woods hoping we would find the same woods, the woods Tom remembers. We run through the woods never saying a word to one another. We arrive at the back of my house, next to our tree forts. We place the items on the ground. We made it, Tom says, full of relief. I will go get Frog and Sally, they would love to make more of our tree forts, our winter tree forts, I say. Frog and Sally both came rushing into the backyard forest. I could see Mom was up. She bundled both children up in heavy-duty winter gear, ski pants, boots, and a heavy jacket. What are we doing? Sally asks, looking up at my face. We want to make the tree forts weatherized, so we can play in them in the winter, once it starts snowing, I answer. As Frog is climbing up the ladder, and with a sense of leadership says, hand me up the plastic. We spend the rest of the day at the forts, Steph, Tom, and I do not say anything to one another about the dream last night. We were hoping to not wake up while playing with Frog and Sally. Glad to enter my warm house after a day in the cold. I take off my winter jacket, excited to run up to my room. I had much daily in my room, writing, coloring, dressing my dolls, and now talking with Steph and Tom. As I enter my room, I turn around expecting to find Tom and Steph, but instead Frog and Sally come rushing into the room. Can we hang out in your room tonight? They both ask. Shortly after, Tom and Steph enter the room. I look at Frog and then at Sally. Yes, sure, you both can hang out with us tonight. I began to think, I wanted the moment to talk to Steph and Tom about our experience in the closet. I wonder if Frog or Sally have had any strange occurrences. Frog, I begin saying, do you remember the day we were in our father's library and you mentioned something about a lady who climbs up your window at night? Yes, Frog says, she usually wants me to let her in. The other night I almost did. What happened? Steph asks. Well, she jumped or flew off the window as I began to open it. I suppose she had other business she had to attend to. But Frog adds, she said something stranger than the previous nights, that she was a friend. That is why I began to open the window, because I was no longer scared of her. Sally mentions, if that is the same lady, she sure is scary. Over the past couple of weeks, I have seen her out my window. I did not want to tell anyone this because confessing her makes me feel stupid. What does she do out there? Steph asks. She walks around the backyard, scaring me. Her face is white, and her eyes are black as nothing. That is the scariest part, her eyes. I always hope when I look at her, she does not notice me to look back at me with those eyes, black eyes stuck inside of her white face. She eats, causing me fear. Sometimes she makes sounds without making sounds, Sally says, crouching down, stabilizing her mind. She is a very scary lady, Frog adds. Sally, can you take us to your room and show us where you see her? Steph asks. Sally gets up off the floor and leads us into her room. 3 rooms down, and Sally points into her room, toward the back window. Steph leads the way over. I do not see anyone over there right now, Steph says. Steph turns around to face Sally. Suddenly I gasp. I point my finger outside the window. Steph, look. Steph comfortably turns around. Oh my goodness, Steph says with horror in her voice. There is a woman out there. Steph, too scared to look, she turns her head. My eyes were fixed on her. That is the lady in the photo, I say as I begin hearing the soft music in the wind, as I watched her hair blowing with the sound. She appears as if she is welcoming me to her private world, a lovely world. I wish I could live with her. Steph and Sally begin screaming. Hey, you two, why are you screaming? I ask. Frog is pulled toward the window. She appears the way she did the other night. She is being nice to us, Frog says. The girls calm down. Tom looks and says, maybe she is one of your neighbors, although it does look like the lady that was in my house the other night. Do you all want to go out? I ask. No, Sally says. I am going out, I say. I will go out with you, Jill, Frog says. Yes, I will too, Tom says. We in a rush got down the stairs hoping that she would not leave. Frog and Sally stayed by the back door, leaving the door open. Hello, I say to the lady. She does not look at us, she just stands there with her head down. Hi, do you live around here? Tom asks. Maybe we should not bother her, Frog says, changing his mind about going to meet her. My younger brother says that you occasionally come out here and look into his bedroom window, I say. The lady looks up. Black, dark eyes investigate mine. Her dark, black hair described her hidden world of a great being, like that of a king or a queen, a ruler of many. If you do not make it any less wonderful out here, you just might get lost out here, the lady says, but you cannot stay here, the lady says, giving a girlish giggle. I could not take my eyes off her. I was in love. Her entire environment was all that I could think I was living for, but I feared it was a worm on a hook or peanut butter on a mousetrap. Overtaken by the atmosphere, I say, well, I will come back. I will tie a rope around me, so I do not get lost and Gonzo will not eat me. You mean Clutter? That critter will not eat you. He eats tomatoes, the lady says. Darling, a rope is out here. It is in the buried trash. If you and your friends come out, and you get lost, follow the trash home, the dark-eyed lady adds. Okay, nice meeting you, I say, still entranced by the atmosphere around her, and begin walking toward the back door. See that Frog? She seems like a nice lady, I say, walking toward the back door. Who was it? Steph asks, standing in the entrance of the door. Good question, Steph. Good question, I say.